May we warm ourselves at the shrine of one another's hearts. May we warm ourselves at the hearth of wisdom left to us by these illumined souls. We ask this in all humility, but in great need, O Lord. So let us begin. Heidi, can I ask you to read As I Found the Source?
Sure. And June, if you can hear us, you're muted and we can't see you, okay? So I hope you can hear that.
Thank you, Heidi, for letting her know.
Yeah, you're with us, June, but we just can't see or hear you. Oh, there, we can see you now. Okay, but we still can't, but you're muted. Okay, As I Found the Source, page 283. When your soul was born, it was like a still ocean that had yet to experience its infinite life. God then came to the shores of our souls and gazed upon the immaculate splendor that his divine heart created. He then took off his clothes and dove into us. Nothing on their own have your arms ever done. The movements of your feet are caused by the waves he stirred. Light baptizes life wherever it falls, and every religion and all upon this earth is a shadow. A shadow may move, but it has no real power of its own. Though it can affect the weak and frighten them, the men can use that darkness to exploit others. As I found the source of all we do, as I found the source of all our desires, so humble God became, he admitted, yes, I caused all things. As I found the source. When your soul was born, it was like a still ocean that had yet to experience its infinite life. God then came to the shores of our souls and gazed upon the immaculate splendor that his divine heart created. He then took off his clothes and dove into us. Nothing on their own have your arms ever done. The movements of your feet are caused by the waves he stirred. Light baptizes life wherever it falls, and every religion and all upon this earth is a shadow. A shadow may move, but it has no real power of its own. Though it can affect the weak and frighten them, the men can use that darkness to exploit others. As I found the source of all we do, as I found the source of all our desires, so humble God became, he admitted, yes, I caused all things.
This poem is, of course, a sermon, a homily. It ends by saying, God caused all things. just backing up from that, it says there is no such thing as independent will, that it was God diving into the immaculate splendor of all the souls created, that stirred the waves that are still resulting in everything that happens. We find that this is a theme that runs through this book, that free will and our idea of ourselves as independent actors is illusory. Now, there's no reason that anyone has to agree with that. Any one of us has to. It's not dogma. It's not. But it is for these remarkable souls revealed truth. And as the saint says here, when she found the source, and that, in other words, was face to face with the divine being, the divine being became so humble that it said, yes, I did all this. Excuse me. I'm in class. I can't talk.
Okay, I'll call you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
So that's at least part of what my reaction is to this homily. What does anyone else have to say? If June is speaking, we can't hear her. Anyone else have anything they'd like to offer?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, June.
Oh, I did it.
And we're so delighted that we can. And is there anything you would like to say in response to this amazing poem?
Yes, I have been wrestling with this all week. And this is my wrestling. God gave us a very good mind. And the free will to make decisions. So when it says, I caused it all, and I can't resolve that.
Many and many of a spiritual seeker has come to this exact same conclusion, June. And so Rainier Maria Rilke, a great spiritual seeker and poet, said, what we do is we live with the question. We live the question. And when we awaken enough, we will know the answer. But we don't have to know the answer in this moment. It is enough. It is a matter of fact that it is very empowering for us to live with the question, so that we too finally come face to face with the source in the way that this poem talks about. And then we know the answer. But it's perfectly wonderful to live with the question. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Okay, good.
yes, yes, it does.
Good. By the way, for any of you who don't know the poet Rainier, it's spelled like Mount Rainier, Rainier Maria Rilke, R-I-L-K-E. If you'd care to look up his work, it is amazing. He doesn't have any mantle of being an illumined soul, but boy, does he speak to us as spiritual seekers. Anyone else have anything to say about this poem? Thank you, June, for wrestling with this all week and for telling us the results of your wrestling match. You know, in the early centuries of Christian tradition, there were the desert mothers and the desert fathers. And they lived primarily alone, each of them in their own dwelling apart from others. And they wrestled with these questions. That was that was a word that was very much in use among them. Wrestling. So it really resonated with me when you said it. Anything else from anyone?
Well,
We can't hear you, Swayam.
I said lately my experiences have made me wonder whether I have any free will at all. Is it just my mind, or because I go through these severe sort of anxiety episodes?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same trigger. Someday I'm able to, you know, get it under control real quick. Some days I try everything that I know, say my japa, walk outside, do whatever, but it just won't go away until I take the medicine. So I can't put my finger on why is it that my mind is like so different on different days.
Well, the fact that the medicine, I'm just going to say this from my personal experience of talking to many people who have this same issue. The fact that the medicine works as it does when you finally come to the conclusion that you need it indicates that the cause is neurological. As multiple sclerosis or Parkinson's, these things are neurological diseases, and no one thinks that there's anything wrong with someone who has Parkinson's disease. We shouldn't think of that there's anything wrong with ourselves when we have other neurological conditions that have other names. Anxiety disorder or they're all clumsy names. things. So I'm so much love and empathy. Yes, we struggle with whatever it is that ails us. And thank God for the medicines. And I mean those words very, very sincerely. Thank God for the medicines.
Here, here.
Yes.
And I used to be able to handle, you know, through mental talking to myself, but lately it seems like it's getting more and more difficult.
Well, you have led a life that has taken you into a new dimension. You are now a very sincere spiritual seeker. And so it's you don't have the, perhaps I'm surmising, you don't have the refuges that you one time used to deal with these things. You know their emptiness now. So thank you for sharing that with us, Swayam.
Thank you, Brother Shankara, for the support.
Anyone else have anything to say about this incredible poem? And as I say, it absolutely should not be taken as dogma. As June said, she wrestled with it and she came to her own conclusion. Bravo. That's exactly what we should do. It does say some truly remarkable things. And it is a homily or sermonette from the saint.
I think it's interesting where it said light baptizes life
Oh,
wherever it falls, and every religion and all upon this earth is a shadow. It's interesting that and every religion is put in there, even though that is, of course, part of all upon this earth. But I think a lot of people, maybe even most religious people, would think that religion is not something that is part of all upon this earth. I just find that interesting.
Well, this is particularly dramatic for a Catholic saint to say, because they're not supposed to accept the fact that there are any other real religions. The Catholics of
Right.
this era, particularly. I mean, it was a heresy to even suggest that there was any such thing as any other real religion. So this was one of the reasons that she was persecuted. Because she said such things. I just love the lines, he took off his clothes and dove into us. What are clothes? Clothes are what disguises us. Clothes are what separates us from our immediate surroundings. God took off his clothes and dove into the ocean of our souls. No separation, no disguise. It's quite a remarkable thing to say. And then, of course, from that, she draws the conclusion that it was the ripples that created by his diving into that by the waves, not ripples, by the waves he stirred. Anything else from anyone?
I also like nothing on their own have your arms ever done. The movements of your feet are caused by the waves he stirred. In Vedanta, we often talk about, we are not the doer, that we don't do anything.
Mhm.
But this is dualistic, but I like that it's like nothing have you done on your own. It's
Well,
like you're involved, you get to be involved, but yeah.
well, it's pretty obvious that not any one of us here this evening, or anyone else that we might know in any circumstance, can say, I did all this. I created this. There's only one that can say that. So this is her interpretation of what she found when she came face to face with the source.
And then I would also add too, what June was, grappling with, or whatever word she used, yes, I caused all things, caused my arms to move, or, the waves to ripple and all of that. I mean, so that's how I take that part, we're not, doing this all on our own at all. But also I understand, I think what June was saying, that, all things, good things, bad things. So,
And that we are given a fine mind
right. We have
and
that,
and a challenging life with which to use it.
yeah, and free will to make those choices. Yeah. So,
Anything else from any of you dears? Okay. Oh, welcome, Maria. Let's see. Cindy, would you read In the Way the Grain Can Feel? In a way the grain can feel. Is that grain or rain? Grain.
Okay. In a way the grain can feel. Remember, God, start over. Remember, God, that we are the plants in your fields, so connected to the earth that you know what would happen if you did not rain upon us. And if your light ceased to lift us from the ground and craft our bodies, how might we near you like the suns? Remember, God, to love us in a way our souls can taste and rejoice in.
I love this poem.
Mhm.
Please read it again.
In a way the grain can feel. Remember, God, that we are the plants in your fields, so connected to the earth that you know what would happen if you did not rain upon us. And if your light ceased to lift us from the ground and craft our bodies, how might we near you like the suns? Remember, God, to love us in a way our souls can taste and rejoice in. I like it.
Yeah, yeah. It's
What were you going to say, June?
it's that touched my heart.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that she finds it enough of a motivation, her knowledge of the relationship with the divine, There's enough in that that offers her the motivation to remind God. And so it is interesting that in her understanding, God has an attention and an attention span also. It's an interesting concept, an interesting idea. More than interesting, it's compelling.
That she's a child.
Yes. Remember me as your child. Anyone else have anything to say, please?
Yes, I also think that last stanza there, you know, describes that she does have that that intimate relationship with God.
Yes.
To simply remind him of what, you know, to love us in a way our souls can taste and rejoice in. Like, you know, would you really say that to God? Well, yeah, she did. She would, because that was her relationship with him.
Yes.
So,
Well, that's one of the things that strikes me as this book is read, that for each of these saints, it's all about relationship with the divine. They do everything they can to overcome any distance between themselves and the divine presence, the beloved, however they speak of it. She simply says God because she's coming from the Catholic tradition. But they do everything. They weep bitter tears. They keep late night vigils. Everything to break down the barriers between themselves. In the tradition that Cindy was talking about earlier, that we follow together, this Vedanta tradition, they're called knots, K-N-O-T-S, knots of the heart. And we do what we must if we are seeking in this way to unloose the knots of our heart. Things that keep us separate from the one and from our sense of oneness with every other human being. Anything else from anyone? Okay, let's go on. The title tells you a lot. Swayam, you feel like reading Feeling Desperate? Swayam, are you
Yes,
there?
yes, I'm here. Yes, it's a perfect poem because I am feeling desperate sometimes. So,
Yes.
okay. The earth and the sky will open their purse for you, and your life will change if, with all your heart, you say these words each day. Teach me, dear God, all that you know. One night, I walked through the streets, feeling desperate, in need of alchemy. A hooded priest passed by where there were no lamps. I could not see his face, I only heard these words that he was repeating. Teach me, dear Lord, all that you know. I knew a treasure had entered my soul. Feeling desperate, the earth and the sky will open their purse for you, and your life will change if, with all your heart, you say these words each day. Teach me, dear God, all that you know. One night I walked through the streets, feeling desperate, in need of alchemy. A hooded priest passed by where there were no lamps. I could not see his face. I only heard these words that he kept repeating. Teach me, dear Lord, all that you know. I knew a treasure had entered my soul.
The end of this poem perfectly connects with the beginning. A treasure had entered her soul, and she says, the same thing will happen to you. The earth and the sky will open their purse for you. The treasure will be yours. For you, and your life will change. She's saying that her life changed. If with all your heart you say these words each day, teach me, dear God, all that you know. And it's so instructive to those of us who suffer from anxiety and concerns that these saints say clearly that they too feel desperate and in need of alchemy. Alchemy, again, relates to this word treasure or purse. What alchemy does is change base metal into gold. That is the aim of alchemy. So one night I walked through the streets feeling desperate, in need of something that would turn this base desperation, whatever was causing this desperation, in need of this. So that's what I know that might be of use to help understand the poem.
And of course, if God teaches all he knows, then we're complete. Then there's nothing else to know.
Well, you know, it's interesting that from, again, the tradition that I follow, the founder of this lineage, of this tradition, not the great tradition of Sanatana Dharma, commonly called Hinduism, but the lineage that we follow, which was founded by Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna asked this for this exact same thing. He said his divine being of worship was the divine feminine. So he always spoke to her as mother. He said, Mother, teach me all that you know. And then, you know, and he spells it out in detail in the writings about him. And she did, and his life was changed. So might be good for us to give a listen. Anyone else? Katrina, anything at all from you? You've been quiet. I just I'm not insisting that you say anything, but is there anything you'd like to offer?
No, I'm just listening and I'm eating too. So,
Oh, okay, dear. It's that time of evening for you. Okay, good.
yes. But I did find it interesting that with the second poem that she, 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 she felt that she could instruct God, the divine, in terms of what to do, particularly after the initial poem. And she said that all that is basically, to me, she said all that it is God. But I guess she was saying it for herself as as a as a prayer to God to like reveal yourself to me in a way in which I can understand, but at the same time knowing that God is and knows all. But
Yeah, I found it very interesting too, and I said something about it at the time.
yeah,
That she, in her relationship with God, it's clear to her that God has an attention span, and that like
right.
anyone else who has an attention span, sometimes you have to remind them. You have to say, you know,
Yeah,
um,
the humor in it.
yeah. Well, there is a light humor in it, but I think there's a very serious meaning also. That though God is responsible for all things, you know, it's infinity and eternity are a big place. As a way to say it. As St. Thomas Aquinas put it, draw a circle around all that you know of creation, and God can barely fit a toe there. So,
Right.
And Kurt Vonnegut said, the universe is a big place, perhaps the biggest.
well, that's pure Kurt Vonnegut, all right.
Quoth Kilgore Trout. Um, the thing about, God her instructing God in this poem, remember God, asking God to remember, just brought up in my mind a song on a CD I have of Sam Cooke, and the Soul Stirrers, a song, Lord Remember Me. And there are a lot of different Lord Remember Me or Remember Me Lord gospel songs, or that is a prominent chorus in a lot of gospel songs, and that is imploring God, remember me, remember. Those are not really instructing God, but they are definitely trying to remind God, hey, remember me, I'm here.
Yeah. And I think we've gone over the poem. Is it by Hafiz, in which he says, God told him, each soul completes me. Hafiz said, how can a human being's life and soul be so important? And God said, each soul completes me. But there's also these implications that there is something of an attention span. Anything else from anyone? And thank you, Katrina, for chiming in. And
Mhm.
I hope I hope you're enjoying your meal extravagantly.
I am. I'm in good company too,
Okay, good.
guys. Thank you for sharing. That was good.
Heidi, I think it's come back around to you if you'd like to read The Servant of Unity.
Sure. The servant of unity. Most men in power have not the strength or wisdom to be satisfied with the way things are. The sane know contentment, for the beauty is their lover, and beauty is never absent from this world. The farther away light is from one's touch, the more one naturally speaks of the need for change. Yes, overthrow any government inside that makes you weak. The child blames the external and focuses his energies there. The warrior conquers the realms within and becomes gifted. Only the inspired should make decisions that affect the lives of many. Never a man who has held God in his arms.
Not held God in
Oh,
his.
never a man who has not held God in his arms and become the servant of unity. The servant of unity. Most men in power have not the strength or wisdom to be satisfied with the way things are. The sane know contentment, for beauty is their lover, and beauty is never absent from this world. The farther away light is from one's touch, the more one naturally speaks of the need for change. Yes, overthrow any government inside that makes you weak. The child blames the external and focuses his energies there. The warrior conquers the realms within and becomes gifted. Only the inspired should make decisions that affect the lives of many. Never a man who has not held God in his arms and become the servant of unity.
I think it's pretty clear from this poem why this woman was persecuted by the men in power of her time, why they didn't want her to become more powerful.
I would say, yeah. Yeah, I really like those last two lines,
Yes.
That's good. Good back then and good wisdom today.
Amen.
I love overthrow any government inside that makes you weep.
Yes.
It reminds me of, and I don't know who it is, right? I can't remember who it is, but one of the poems in this book that says, forget any image of God that makes you weep or makes you sad.
Right.
Makes you sad. Overthrow any government inside that makes you weep.
I think the first one that you mentioned was something from Aquinas, St. Thomas Aquinas.
Only the inspired should make decisions that affect the lives of many.
We hope and pray they're inspired.
We hope and pray they are inspired indeed, June. We pray for it daily, don't we? I mean,
Yes.
that it's that those who are making decisions that affect the lives of many are inspired by the divine. And the argument can be made that this poem contradicts her earlier poem, in which she asserted that God is and is doing everything. So I'm sure if one accused her of that she would receive it gracefully. Walt Whitman, the great American poet, was once accused of that. Someone said, pointed at two different parts of Leaves of Grass and said, "Mr. Whitman, you contradict yourself." And Walt Whitman was quiet for a few moments and then said, "Well, I contradict myself. Very well, I contradict myself. I contain multitudes." And of course, that's true of each of us.
Which is him recognizing his divinity and
Yes,
her recognizing hers,
yes.
because you can pick out contradictions, seeming contradictions,
Mm-hmm.
as they're, yeah.
Well, how in this universe of darkness and light, good and evil, yes and no, the threat of a blow at any moment from fate or karma or whatever you want to call it, how can there not be contradictions? How can we not feel conflicted? One way this moment, another way another. I certainly do. That's why the title of that poem that was recently written said, "Songs of Reverence and Anguish." Hmm. It's in a dualistic experience, the sweet and the dark, there are going to be these contradictions and conflicts. It's absolutely impossible for there not to
That's what makes it go.
be. Yeah.
I mean, it is, because if it weren't, it's the nature of duality, opposites, yin yang,
Right.
you know.
Anyone else have anything to say about this remarkable poem? Another one of her sermons. Okay. The Grail. Swayam, would you like to read this?
Which poem are we at now?
The Grail.
I think I lost my page. The Grail.
287, it says here.
Okay. Let me find it. Sorry. I don't know what's happening. It's not going to the. I'm not able to get to that page number, so if somebody else can read.
Okay. Cindy, you want to do it?
Sure. It's a short one. Oops. Well, now I'm having trouble with it.
Well, I'll read it then.
Oh, wait, what's it called? I'm just trying to find it.
The Grail. It
Oh,
says it's on 287.
I know. My Kindle's being weird too. Okay. The Grail. They are like shy young school kids, time and space, before the woman and the man who are intimate with God. The realized soul can play with this universe the way a child can a ball. A chalice, the Grail, my body became, for it held the Christ, and he drank from me. Sanctified are our limbs, for every heart has touched God, though most with closed eyes. A holy relic is each creature, and beauty may worry about its comeliness waning. We fear dying till we know the truth of ourselves. The seams on my body are torn. I have stepped from that region of me that did not love all the time. There is a divine world of light with many suns in the sky. I slept with my Lord one night. Now all that is luminous, I know, we conceived. The Grail. They are like shy young school kids, time and space, before the woman and the man who are intimate with God. The realized soul can play with this universe the way a child can a ball. The chalice, a chalice, the Grail, my body became, for it held the Christ, and he drank from me. Sanctified are our limbs, for every heart has touched God, though most with closed eyes. A holy relic is each creature, and beauty may worry about its comeliness waning. We fear dying till we know the truth of ourselves. The seams on my body are torn. I have stepped from that region of me that did not love all the time. There is a divine world of light with many suns in the sky. I slept with my Lord one night. Now all that is luminous, I know we conceived.
I'd just like to say again, as I've said throughout our readings in these books, that in this book, I mean, that my sense is that we can take these people at their word. What they say, what they're telling us, they're crafting the very best language that they know how to tell us the truth as they have experienced it. And the fact is, from the perspective of the mystics across the traditions, each one of us is the saint here, though some of us, as she points out, and perhaps all of us at some time, are doing what she's talking about and the way she's talking about it with our eyes closed. Certainly I can say, I can raise my hand. So all I can say is I think she means every word here. What does anyone else understand from what she said?
It's that poem is so enlightening, loving,
What gives you that sense, June?
in its wholeness. It's my own feeling is that I want to hear it as a whole,
Yes.
and I don't want to take it away. Is that, do you understand that?
Well, I think that's what each one of these poets is trying to do. And for that matter, everyone who crafts a song or a poem wants us to understand that it is a whole. It is a completeness. So yes, indeed. The lines I love the best are the seams on my body are torn. I have stepped from that region of me that did not love all the time. And when I say, I think we can take her at her word. What an incredible thing to say.
That part that you just read made me think about, the poem in here, and is it Saint Francis where God, I think he said, or whoever the poet was said, wanted to love God entirely, and God said, well, can you love this, small but kind of awful, nasty blemish on me, and that is all of the suffering in the world.
All of the suffering and the horror, yes. And
Yeah,
that's Aquinas.
horror. So I thought, was that Francis?
No, it was Thomas Aquinas.
Oh, Aquinas. Okay. Um, I thought of that because, that was saying, yes, I am responsible. God saying I am responsible for all the bad stuff as well as the good stuff. And if you're going to love me entirely, you have to love all of it or embrace all of it. And when she says in this poem, St. Teresa says, what you just read, I have stepped from that region of me that did not love all the time. Maybe I'm stepping out on a limb here,
No.
I'm not
I
trying to
hear,
make them work. It came up in my head.
no, I hear the resonance you're saying. Yes, exactly.
It was like it wasn't she's not saying I have destroyed this part of me or I have abandoned, I have stepped out of it. This region of
And the
mission.
implication is that there was a time when she was within that
Yeah.
region of ourselves that we all know so well, that does not and seemingly cannot love all the time. And what she's saying to us is, well, I did, she said. And the seams of my body are torn.
Kind of like an old rag doll coming apart. Or an old teddy bear coming apart.
And again, there's these lines. There's a divine world of light with many suns in the sky. Again, this is something that has been said over and over again by the mystics, that they have experienced this, and it's in the Bhagavad Gita, for example.
This line is also kind of interesting and a little bit intriguing. we fear dying till we know the truth of ourselves, but it's also the fear that keeps us from knowing the truth of ourselves.
Yes. Again, the contradictions that we were talking about earlier, you know, it's only until, as she said, you know, as we've talked about again and again, there's a through line in these poems. It isn't until we begin to have that sense of surrender that says, "Tell me, Lord, everything that you know," so that the contradictions are resolved and the fear goes away. But if we ask that, then we have to accept what happens. And this is the hesitation that is felt, to step over the line and say, as Saint Catherine of Siena said, "We know nothing until we know everything," which is a perfect resonance with what we've been hearing here. Well, according to my clock, it's 9:03. So shall we take it up with the next poem, or shall we go back next week and start with the poem that we just read? What do people think? Shall we start with More Traffic Than You Think, or shall we go back and read this one again and discuss it some more? I'm just asking, is there more that wanted to be said about this particular poem?
I really would like to go a little bit further.
Maria, go ahead.
Yes, I really would like to review this next time if it's possible, because there is something that calls the attention here when it says that a child is of God. My body became for a hell the Christ, and he drank from me. When they talk about the Christ, he is the person, what I perceive a little bit differently and perhaps in different worlds, the Christ consciousness. She stepped from the ego or the human part that we are entangled in this human, every perception from the ego. And then we step out of that. We go and encounter the divinity, the Christ consciousness. So that part is like when Jesus was baptized and the Spirit came onto him, and he became the Christ. So I guess in that moment, that person has that experience of the Christ coming into body and, transform the person.
That's what I think she means, Maria, when she says, "A chalice, the Grail, my body became," or it held the Christ,
and
he drank from me. So your sense is that we should start with this poem again next week.
Yes,
and,
really, because there is more than that. It's very in depth, every part of that.
Okay, Maria, we hear you. We hear that. And so next week we'll start with the Grail again and hear the rest of what you have to say. I just It's after 9 o'clock, so I don't want to keep everyone. Are there any other final thoughts from anyone? All right, dears. May each of us be safe. May each of us be healthy. May each of us be cheerful. May each of us have peace of mind. May each of us go forward in the loving, protective embrace of the divine presence as we understand it. It's the season in our tradition for the worship of the Divine Mother in the form of Durga. So I'll just leave us with this. Jai Shri Durga, Jai Shri Durga, Jai Shri Durga. That is, hail to the Divine Mother in the form of Durga. Anything else from anyone? Well, it's so good to have seen you all, to have been with you. I'm glad you joined us. And next week on Monday at 8 p.m. Is that Peggy Johnson? Is that Peggy
It
Johnson
is. She snuck
in
in here,
Oklahoma
so
City?
yes.
Well, Peggy, I'm so glad you joined us, and I see my dear friend Beverly who joined us from California as well.
Beverly and Peggy snuck in right around the same time. Hey, Beverly.
Hi there.
Hey, Peggy.
So
So
delighted.
glad to see you all.
Yes, and I'll give you a call tomorrow, Beverly, if that's all right.
Yes, that's great.
Okay. Beverly's in the hospital. That's why. And she's a very old friend, as many of you know.
A long
All right,
time.
dears. I'm gonna end the meeting. So glad you came. You're all so dear to me, and I know we're all dear to one another. So
Good night,
good night.
everyone. Blessings.
Good night.
Good night. Night.
Thank you and good night. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye, June.
Bye.
Bye, June.
Bye.
Bye, Heidi.
Bye.
Bye, Peggy. That's why I'm.
Bye,
Bye, June.
everyone.
Bye, Beverly. Bye, Maria.